So I just got done watching Space Jam 2: The Squeakquel on HBO Max, and I gotta say, it was actually a much more fun movie than I thought it would be. Partly because at a certain point, the movie just kinda demands you stop looking at it analytically and just have fun with it. Kinda like the original Space Jam. But there's still some stuff in this movie that I want to talk about, so I'm gonna go ahead and just do that now. Space Jam: A New Legacy is about LeBron James trying to reconnect with his son Dom, and how Dom's love of video games and LeBron's dismissal of that sort of thing angers a Warner Brothers AI who calls himself Al-G Rhythm, really clever name there, played by Don Cheadle. When Al-G pulls LeBron and Dom into the serververse, stupid name, he basically kidnaps LeBron's son for calling him stupid, and then challenges him to basketball. Because we gotta make it a basketball movie somehow. From there he sends LeBron to Toon World, where he runs into a solitary Bugs Bunny, and the quest to get a basketball team together commences. I'll admit that the movie starts off pretty slow, doing a lot to emulate the feeling of the original Space Jam. We see a flashback of LeBron when he's young, see him grown up and living his life now, before he's sucked into the world of the Looney Tunes and things really start to go haywire. And while it may offer a few nice callbacks to the original film during its runtime, I'm actually really glad that this movie did a lot to break the divide and try and do something on its own. Its own needlessly forced cross-promotion thing, I guess. So the really big problem I thought I would have going into this movie was all the obvious cross-promotion stuff, since almost every trailer focused more on things like the Iron Giant or some classic Hanna-Barbera characters, rather than LeBron or the Toons or anything about the plot for the most part. And yeah, there's a lot of that cross-promotion-y stuff in this movie, and it's kind of unavoidable, but it's not really intrusive. Compare that to Ready Player One. One of my big problems with that movie was how in-your-face all of the references were. Sure, you can argue that that's a key part of the story to an extent, but a lot of the times the movie seemed much more focused on reminding you of all the things that Warner Brothers owns that are remotely nerd-related, rather than focusing on making a good narrative. But I have a whole video planned talking about Ready Player One, so I'll skip over that for the time being. In A New Legacy, meanwhile, all of that cross-promotion stuff is still there, but it's more like window dressing rather than in your face, which was a nice change of pace, honestly. There are still sections where it can be a bit too much, like when LeBron first is sent to Toon World and you see all of the different worlds that he passes, but it doesn't linger or get shoved into your face too often, instead allowing the movie to focus on the core cast of LeBron and his family, the Looney Tunes, and Al-G. Speaking of Al-G, though, I really liked Don Cheadle in the role. He's the penultimate bad guy of the movie, there's no real denying that, with his big plan being kidnapping LeBron's son and only releasing him if LeBron can beat him in a basketball game. But if LeBron loses, he has to stay in the serververse forever. It's still stupid. It gives LeBron actual stakes in the movie pretty much right off the bat, whereas in the original Space Jam, Jordan only had stakes related to him in like the last 20 minutes when he wagers himself to Smackhammer. After Al-G captures them, it cuts between LeBron gathering the Toons and training them, with Al-G talking up LeBron's son, using his complex with his dad to win the kid to his side, and when the basketball game begins halfway through the movie, and Al-G is literally pitting LeBron against Dom, it shows the tangible effect that he's had on the conflict to the story. Plus, it's thanks to his warming up to Dom that he got access to the kid's game in the first place, and the scan tech involved with it, introducing us to the new Goon Squad. This was one of the parts of the movie I was initially apprehensive towards, if only because I was expecting Don Cheadle to grab Warner Brothers characters like King Kong or the Joker to be on his team based on the trailers. But instead, it ended up being actual NBA and WNBA players who just so happened to get turned into freakish monster versions of themselves. This was a nice inversion on the original where it was the aliens taking players' talent, but it did kinda come at the cost of me caring about any of the players. I had no idea who basically any of these people were. They don't really get much screen time outside of monster form to endear themselves to the audience, and as such, I only know them based on who they were as monsters instead of who they are as players. I didn't even really know half of their names going in, and I still don't know any of them. I don't know, a little more attention to them would have been nice is all I'm saying, especially since one of the sillier parts of the original movie was watching the other players dealing without their talent and how the NBA reacted to them suddenly and randomly losing said talent. The only player I'm even remotely familiar with in this movie is LeBron himself. And while he's doing a better job at acting in this movie than Jordan did in the original Space Jam, he still probably doesn't have much of a future as a hardcore actor. There were times where it felt like he was genuinely just having fun, like when he dabs for his son or a goofy smile he gives during the big game. And I found myself enjoying watching him play up himself, just like Jordan before him. But then there were times where the illusion kind of just fell apart. Like anytime he screams in the movie, it sounds like the same scream soundbite, which says to me he can only fake scream in one specific way, or they just reused the same one over and over. Couple that with some awkward line delivery here or there, and some times where it seems like he doesn't understand what's happening around him, and it's a passable performance at best. Kinda like some other characters. Alright, with that said, it's time we start talking about some of these spoilers, so if you want to see the movie for yourself, skip to the time code on screen if you want to avoid any spoilers. Alright? Alright, y'all probably know how this works by now. I really wish that they had tried a little harder with Algie. He poses a fantastic threat, sure, but once the Goon Squad starts losing, he just becomes generic villain number 8472. He gets big and gets into the game himself, and it feels incredibly forced, especially since he was doing such a good job as the villain up to that point, being a manipulator. A little bit of a rework could have fixed him so he was better at manipulating Dom or something into being like the big penultimate evil, but he's not really the one that I had the most issue with. If anything, this was just a minor slight on an otherwise good character. To me, it feels like they didn't really know what to do with Bugs Bunny. The connection between him and Jordan was well set up for the first movie, since they appeared in commercials and stuff together prior to the film's release. But for him and LeBron, it was just, LeBron is the new Michael, so slap these two together and give them a reason to play basketball, and boom, movie. I liked it initially when Bugs was leading LeBron all around the server verse. God, that is such a stupid name. When he's misleading LeBron into thinking that they're actually recruiting the best basketball players Warner Brothers owns, but instead they end up rounding up the Looney Tunes gang because Bugs was lonely. That's a pretty neat idea. And some of the places they go with Bugs and LeBron in terms of the other references, those were some of the more fun cross-promotion things that I was fine with in the movie. But once everyone is together again, Bugs really doesn't have anything to do until his self-sacrifice moment in the end. I think a bit of a rework on his motivation would have helped to this, and maybe having him push back a little more on LeBron to create tension between them could have helped. I mean, Bugs is meant to be a little stinker, so let him act like one. All that said, there is quite a few things I did enjoy about the movie. The Michael B. Jordan cameo being played up like it was actually Michael Jordan about to show up was the right amount of silly, especially since I didn't think we'd get much of a mention of Jordan, let alone a cameo. Once the Toons get to do their own thing on the court, it's like the original Space Jam, with some clever little gags and set pieces that highlight different tunes and just makes me feel happy. And if anything, I think the ending has me interested in seeing a potential series or something on HBO Max, with the Toons living at LeBron's place terrorizing him, so I don't know, maybe there's something there. So overall, what did I think of the movie? You know, this is the kind of movie that you can just put on and mindlessly watch and have a good time with. Going into it expecting something other than Looney Tunes playing basketball with LeBron James will likely leave you disappointed. But it isn't meant to be like an Oscar-worthy movie or anything in my book. This is basically just another high-budget advertisement for Warner Brothers that just so happens to be a lot of fun, if you're willing to look past the few minor problems that the movie has. I'd say that I enjoyed Space Jam: A New Legacy about as much as I did the original Space Jam. Both movies kind of work for different reasons, and as far as a follow-up to the original film goes, A New Legacy certainly feels like it's at least trying to live up to the nostalgia of the original. So if you have HBO Max or want to risk going to a movie theater and are interested in seeing it, I say give it a watch. It's a silly movie that acts more like a product at times than a film, but if you shut off your brain and just let yourself watch it, you're likely going to enjoy it like I did. Thanks for watching, subscribe if you aren't already, and do all that fun YouTube-y stuff down below, and I will see all of you in the next video. Take care.